Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, award-winning author of kick-butt heroines and steamy action-packed fantasy worlds. And I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking from bad boys to billionaires with fellow Australian author Lilian Monroe. How are you today?
Hello, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have an Aussie on here. So let's not swear too much or eat too much Vegemite or be a stereotype on here, shall we?
I'm actually an Aussie import. I'm originally from Canada, so I've been here about 10 years. I thought you would have known the accent.
I did, but I was thinking, oh, okay. Her accent isn't as heavy as mine. That's okay. My little heart is just broken with my big old intro with that now. But how do you love it?
But I did get my passport a couple months ago, so it's official.
It is official. How do you love it over here?
Yeah. I can't really imagine living anywhere else at this point.
Now, let's talk about books. I would love to talk about the start of your journey, what got you into writing, and how you found publishing for the first time.
Yeah, well, I published my first book, I think 5 years ago. Yeah. Pretty close to now, exactly 5 years ago. I was working as an engineer at the time and completely miserable, like hated it basically. And so I was kind of like searching, like, what do I want to do? Doing all the sort of worksheets and talking to people and trying to figure things out. And like the thing about being an engineer is like a lot of people would tell me like, you can do anything with engineering, and they'd be like, you can work on this job site or this job site. And I'd be like, those are the same thing. Like, that's not what I want to do. So I started reading about publishing, and I started reading like K-boards and basically just seeing that people were making a living from it. And I've always been an avid reader, and just sort of gave it a go. And I did like exactly what you're not supposed to do, which is quit my job before I'd published anything, So I think it was good to do that because it kind of put the pressure on, and I was like all in. That's basically how it started. I just heard about it, did like maybe 6 months of research, and then wrote a book, and it was way harder than I thought it would be. So I've learned a lot since then.
This outcome might have not worked out for everyone as the reality of the situation. But I absolutely love those who just risk it all, who back themselves up. They're like, this is what I want to pursue. I'm going to do it. And, we've heard on time on here that risk takers usually have a lot of success in that as well. So it's amazing that you did that. You backed yourself up. You went through the process. And what were some of the bigger lessons I want to say you learned when you were publishing your first couple of books?
I mean, the biggest thing I would say is I just had to keep going, because my first few books were not popular, like at all. And I think that was a function of many things. Like, I think I didn't really understand the genre as much as I do now. Also, I had no platform, like nobody knew who I was. So everybody who's picking up the book is taking a risk, So the biggest things I learned, would be to just keep going. Like when something doesn't work, just to try again. And that was kind of like my motto for those first few years, where I would just be like, okay, if I just don't give up, success is inevitable. Like I would tell myself that every day, and it was hard because I wasn't, I had quit my job and I was like teaching English online to make money, and the books were not selling. But eventually you find something that maybe works a little bit, and then you double down on it, and then you try other stuff, and then just like over time it really like builds, and you get that sort of like exponential growth.
And when was that moment that you saw that momentum? When was the snowball effect really kicking in for you, where you could then make it into a full-time job?
I think it took me about 18 months, which is pretty quick, I think. Well, I don't know. I have no frame of reference, but it felt pretty quick. I don't know if there was really one moment. Like, I still have those moments all the time, where I'm like, oh, nice, like now I've got it. And then 10 minutes later, I'll be like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I'm such an amateur, So the first series that I think sold a little bit was the Unexpected series, which used to be called the Knocked Up series. It was like Knocked Up by the CEO. So people were like picking those up, I think, because they were a bit more kind of tropey than the books that I had written before. So that was encouraging. So that would have been, I think, the second series I wrote.
Have you had any hurdles when it comes to tropes? Because I was actually looking at some of your TikToks, and I noticed that one of your pinned ones was expressing that you first found who was not your reader audience, who didn't like, surprise babies and things like that. So I was curious as to how you managed that expectation and came to an understanding that not every reader is for your books.
I mean, those TikToks are mostly just jokes, like, because when I first went on TikTok, there was so much hate about like accidental baby books, and I was like, whoa, like, I honestly just tried whatever, and then if something seemed to resonate, I would just do it again, So I've never tried to, like, I know that not everybody is gonna love my books, so I think kind of like chasing a specific reader it doesn't really work, and especially because books that I've tried to write to fit a certain trope that I wasn't really into fell flat, and I'm never going to do it again. Like any sort of like military romance or that. I think I have one series that I tried. So I think it has to be the sort of Venn diagram of what you actually enjoy and then whether or not other people want to read it. And the thing is that it took me a long time to figure out, like, what do people actually want to read? Because when I first started, I thought that it was all about like the steamy scenes, like I thought people were reading these because they wanted like the heat or whatever, but I don't really think that's true, or that's not really true for my books specifically. Like, of course, there's a lot of books that are a lot steamier than mine, but I think it's more about like the story and the build up and the romance, and it took me a long time to understand that.
Tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind Dirty Little Midlife Crisis, because that has over 3,000 ratings and reviews. It is one of your well-loved series. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I love that series. Yeah. And like, I can't wait to write more books in it and to do spin-off series. And basically, Dirty Little Midlife Crisis is book one of a series of books about women and men in their 40s. And a lot of them are starting over after divorces or, having lost their partners or what have you. And it's set in a small town. So the inspiration was basically me getting frustrated reading books about 18-year-old girls. Because I read a lot of different genres. And at the time, there were, it must have been a bunch of authors that had all coordinated at the same time in paranormal romance, and they were all writing these like really funny books about women in their 40s. And the romance was like a subplot in them that arched over a few books. There was like Shannon Meyer, KF Breen, and I read a bunch of them, and they were funny and fun, and like I found myself really relating to the main character. So then I started looking at top lists to see if anything existed in contemporary romance or in rom-coms with that. And everything that I saw was like really clean, sweet romance, like that kind of thing. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, just because you're in your 40s or your 50s doesn't mean you're dead, Yeah. So that was basically the inspiration, that I was like, there are a lot of stories to tell here that don't involve like a 28-year-old who doesn't know she's beautiful, or whatever. So yeah, but it's I love writing those books, and I want to write more of them.
So what does your writing process look like then? Are you a plotter? Are you a pantser? Do you write 9 till 5? And do you do any like unique weird little things like light a candle every time or have your cup of coffee ready to go?
I don't really have any rituals. I just sit down. I mean, I have an office. This is my office. And I work on a desktop. And once I changed from like a laptop to a desktop was like a big change in my life, for the better, you know, because I have an actual like desk and a place that I go and sit down. So when I come in here, it's like it's work time. But as far as plotting or pantsing, on the spectrum of those two things, I would say like I'm more a pantser, but I usually have like, you know, the tent poles of the plot written out. You know, like the big thing for me is I need to figure out the character wounds before I do any writing, because that really drives like the story and how characters react to different situations. So that'll really be the first thing that I'll think about, whether I already have the tropes or, you know, I really want to have the character's backstory and their wound kind of fleshed out in my head. And then thinking about how those two wounds like bounce off each other. And then from there, it's much easier to write a coherent story.
What would then be your advice to fellow writers who perhaps want to pursue writing a book in contemporary romance?
I would say read Gwyn Hayes' Romancing the Beat, which is a fantastic book about plotting a romance novel. There are a ton of resources for plotting romance novels, and I think understanding story structure is really important. Gwyn Hayes is the one that I use still for plotting things out. And the other thing that I would say is pay attention to the wounds, to your character's backstory and why, you know, why they act the way that they do. And if you can, one thing that I like doing is having the wounds be kind of opposed to each other, you know, so either they have a similar wound and they react to it in opposite ways. Like if they're, I don't know, whatever it is, like if they've been abandoned or something, like one of them might want more affection and the other one might push affection away. So if you have two different wounds that play off each other, then the way your two main characters are going to interact will be, it'll feel a lot more cohesive over the course of the book. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I love that. Like, it's so interesting when we talk about like the psychology behind our characters as well, because this is 100%, this is valid, because you really need to genuinely know how your character is going to react in certain situations. And sometimes it's not always in an obvious way to the audience either. They're like, why has he just spun out about this? Or he or she, whatever the thing is. And then you'll find out 2 chapters later, this is why. And so it actually, I feel, adds more depth to it, because we as humans have multiple layers as well. So I think that's very clever to really understand your character first before starting the book itself, because then you probably don't have to edit as much either.
Yeah. Sometimes it does reveal itself as you write, but it's so much easier when you have that fleshed out ahead of time.
Yeah. Well, you've now written over 45 books, which is crazy amazing. So how many words averagely are your books, and how often does it take you to write them?
Well, when I first started, they were a lot shorter. They were around like 65,000 words, whereas now these days they're like closer to 90. So and it takes me longer now to write them. I would say it's about like a 3-month process now, which is pretty quick. But like when you sit down and do something every day, you know, you do make progress.
What advice would you offer then for those who want to make this a long-term career? Because again, I just want to, you know, you can be humble. I can spruce about it for you. Like, over 45 books is crazy amazing again. So what would you suggest to authors to make this a long-term career in maneuvering around burnout, which is a massive thing that we deal with in this industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think that you have to pump out 12 books a year to be a successful indie publisher. I don't think you even have to do 6 a year, you know? Like, I think you could be successful doing 3, or, you know, 1 might be kind of hard, but you can build things over time. And the bigger your backlist is, like, you're going to continue to get new readers into the fold, and they're going to explore your other books. And if you write multiple series that are what I wish I'd done was have things intertwined, you know, so like recurring characters over multiple series and everything is a spin-off or whatever. But I didn't do that. I just did like a scattergun. Oh, I'll try this until I finally sort of settled into my voice. Yeah, my advice would just be to sit down and keep doing it every day. And, or not every day, I don't write every day, but, you know, on a regular schedule or whatever works for you. And when it gets hard, which it will, when you're at about the, you know, 60% of the way through the book, and you think you've just written a pile of hot garbage and it's never going to come together, just like put that little voice in a box and just keep writing.
It's so funny how consistent we are, I want to say, as writers, because we all reflect in the same way to that. I'm laughing with you because I'm like, I feel attacked in this moment, because that's exactly how I feel up to that point. So I feel that. What would you say the most surprising thing is you found in the industry so far?
Do you mean like do you mean like marketing, or the books themselves, or romance as a genre?
All of it.
There's so many things that are surprising, right? Like, I was surprised at the fact that I wasn't an instant bestseller.
Feel that as well?
Like, I wrote my first book and I was like, oh yeah, here I go. I'll be a millionaire by next month, which did not happen. Like,
I feel that.
Yeah. The masses did not enjoy my genius. So that was surprising. But I think I probably needed that sort of naivety, you know, in order to actually do it to begin with. You know, what's one thing that I find surprising as well is social media. So my social media is like tragic. Like, I'm so bad at it. But I think that it's not really as necessary as you might think it is.
Yeah.
I read this book, I think it was in Newsletter Ninja. I can't remember I can't remember the author's name, but she was talking about how if you're not good at social media, you can use them as outposts.
Yeah.
So like, if somebody primarily uses Instagram, just have enough on there that they can find you and be directed to where you actually connect with readers. And for me, it's my newsletter. Like, whenever somebody emails me, I'll email them back unless they're really rude or something.
And then I'll email them back faster. No.
Yeah. And then I will type out a dissertation telling them why they're wrong. Yeah, so I think that, to me, relieved a lot of stress. You know, not trying to be like a social media guru when I'm not at all.
And I think that's one of the lessons we have to learn is you don't have to do all the things. And I think so many of us make that mistake because we are given so much information constantly, this work for this person, and we want to be accessible to our readers, but it doesn't all necessarily have to be for us. And I love that you found a way outside of social media, because that doesn't suit you. And that sounds like that process is working really well for you. I'd love to talk about audiobooks, because you have heaps of audiobooks. So how did you find the process, and what advice do you have for authors who might be looking at converting over for the first time?
So most of my audiobooks are actually produced by audio companies. I only have 4 that I've done myself. I'm not the best person to ask this, because I I don't really listen to audiobooks, and I found it really difficult to do them myself. And I did them through because I wanted to do dual narration. I couldn't do it directly through Findaway Voices, and because we're in Australia, we don't have access to ACX.
Yeah.
So I had to contact like a company, who basically shepherded me through the process. And it was hard. It was slow. And, you know, like I had to constantly ask them to keep going. So then I want to do more of them, but for the past year, I've just been like, you know, selling the rights basically. And probably from like a purely commercial standpoint, it's not the best thing to do. You know, I could probably make more money if I was doing them myself, putting out, you know, by doing them myself, what I mean is like you actually pay all the production costs, you pay the narrators, and then you own the rights. So you can distribute the audiobook however you want to. Whereas when you sell the rights, another company has the control over everything, and they just pay you a portion of the royalty. So from like a business standpoint, it would probably be better to do them all myself, but like you have to prioritize. And so for me, that was one thing that I was just like, okay, for now, I'm just gonna work with these companies, and they do a great job. Like it's their bread and butter, you know, it's what they do. So for me, that works. But I would definitely like to, you know, dip my toes in the water again and see what I can do. But that's, I don't know. Yeah. It's not happening right now.
Obviously you found it because you continue going back to that same process. You've still found it profitable for yourself. And it is exactly that factor. You have to prioritize because everything is time and money. So what time do you have? Because it is a big project to focus on. Yeah. So I think delegating elsewhere works perfectly for some people. So I think that's a really good suggestion.
You don't have to always do what's like, well, there is no, oh, this is the best, this is what you should do, this is the best thing. Like your situation is different from everybody else's. Your strengths are different, your interests are different, your audience is different. So like, how can anybody else tell you what the right thing to do is?
Upon every release, leading up to that release, what are your 3 must-dos marketing-wise?
Newsletter. I email my newsletter. I put up some ads. So mostly on Facebook. I do use Amazon ads as well, but not so much during the launch. So the biggest thing would be, these days I've been using pre-orders almost exclusively. So I'll make sure that the final file, you know, that's been edited and proofread again is and formatted is up in time. Yeah, do my newsletter and put up some ads on Facebook, really. Yeah. So those would be the 3 biggest things.
Obviously, the readers are what make the dream come alive. So what is one of your most memorable reader interaction moments?
I've had so many. Like, I love getting reader emails. Honestly, like I've developed so many, I would say, friendships with people, you know, and readers telling me that they could relate to my characters. Like whenever that happens, it just like makes me feel like a superhero. You know, I wrote Dirty Little Midlife Secret. The main character has breast cancer. And I got an email from from a real person who had just been diagnosed with breast cancer. And like, it was such a touching email. And she was just telling me that she felt so seen, you know, and she'd never read a book where the main character had breast cancer and was going through all that. And like, I teared up a little, you know, because I was like, this is just me writing down my words from my brain. And like, people are actually, you know, connecting to them. So that was pretty special.
What would you say then your greatest accomplishment and your greatest challenge has been so far in your writing career?
It's the same answer to both. Finishing the book. Whatever that book may be. No, I would say, like, the thing is that it's such a cliche, but like, it really is a marathon, you know? So the greatest challenge really is just like getting up and doing it week after week, because there's so much self-doubt. Like, for me, at least, you know, I constantly feel like I don't know what I'm doing, or this story that I'm writing is ridiculous. Like nobody's gonna read this. But then you get to the end of the book and you leave it for a bit, and then you go back and reread it and you're like, oh, this is actually the best thing I've ever written. So so yeah.
I feel like we're very similar writers because I'm relating so much to what you're saying. Like I'll come back and I'm like, that line, what a teaser. I'm like,
Yeah.
did somebody else come in and write that?
Yeah, I know. Like I am an actual genius, and I'm the funniest person on planet Earth.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And that's how imposter syndrome works, guys.
Yeah.
You're a hidden genius.
Yeah, it's these huge swings, you know.
Yeah. This is my favorite question to ask. What is the goal? What is the big dream that you're chasing for your career in books?
I mean, I've never hit a list. That's a function of like I'm exclusive to Amazon, you know.
Yeah.
But I'd love to be like USA Today or New York Times best-selling author. Like that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right now, I would say my biggest dream is I have like 4 or 5 manuscripts in different genres that I've started. So I really want to, I've started writing this mystery that I really like. So I guess just writing, sort of challenging myself to write a different genre and create a book that I'm proud of. That's not like a huge dream, but like it is what it is.
But I love that you're still experimenting with genres at the same time as well, because it's a little bit trickier sometimes when you are predominantly one particular genre and then you go and do something else, but it's also challenging and rewarding at the same time to see whether you can pull it off. So that's awesome that you're still experimenting with that.
Well, it's challenging as well because the genres are so different in like how books are structured, like what do you emphasize, what's the pacing like, all those things. So to me, writing like a mystery, which is really plot driven, is a huge challenge, right? Because you get like 5,000 words in and you're like, okay, something needs to happen, like with a capital H. I can't just have 2 people flirting on page, like, you know, on the page. So yeah, it's a huge challenge because it's a completely different way to write, but I think it makes me a better writer as well, to sort of think of plots, you know, and I think my romance plots have gotten more complex, and the books have been more popular, so obviously people are looking for that as well. Yeah, I mean, it's great. Have you ever tried to write a different genre?
Yeah, I started writing when I was 15, so I was a baby.
Oh,
So
nice.
I started off writing young adult, and then that changed to young adult, to contemporary romance, to then erotica, to then paranormal romance, and now I am dark fantasy, and that's my lane.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
kind of shifted through all those things to find what was my song in books, so
Yeah.
to speak. So I think a lot of authors do that. As you were saying, the way that you started off, you shifted through many different genres and then you found this was your happy place. I do have a segment called Speed Dating with an Author. Okay. So I've lit a candle, I've created ambience. You ready? You ready for that? Basically what it is 5 rapid questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
I'm pretty clumsy. So like, you know, my whole life. But the one really bad clumsy moment that I had was when I was in university and I lived with my 2 friends, and one of my roommates, who's, you know, my BFF, is like even clumsier than me. And so roommate number 3 had these really nice wine glasses. They were, you know, the like really big ones with like the fine stem. And, you know, we were like college kids, so we didn't have anything nice, you know? And so she had these like 2 really nice wine glasses and I broke them. I was doing the dishes and like I knocked them off the counter or whatever. But then the worst part was she blamed my other roommate. I took the blame when I found out, obviously, but like they had like huge falling out and it was like really bad. And it was my fault. Oh, I still feel guilty. Like, yeah.
I feel like this was a confession for you. I'm sorry, I'm still taking that to the grave. I'm sorry.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And I think that my other roommate sort of blanked out the fact that I did it, because like years later she was like, oh yeah, and then she broke my wine glass. I was like, no, like that was me. I did that.
Now you've got it on video as well. Like you're just.
Oh no, it was before those days. Oh yeah. Oh, I should send her a confessional video, like just a reminder. Yeah. So that was the word. That's the clumsiest moment that I also feel most guilty about.
What is the 3 words that best describe you?
I would say resilient, stubborn. Maybe those are the same.
I mean, definitely you're painting a picture for me.
Yeah, like opinionated.
What's a song that best describes you?
Well, I can tell you the song that I've been listening on repeat.
Yeah.
Lately. It's Old Time Rock and Roll by Bob Seger.
Really? Do you write when to music?
No, I write in complete silence. Even when my partner's here and he's doing literally nothing, being completely silent, it's hard for me to write. So like, yeah, complete silence and isolation.
You're like, stop breathing. It's too loud.
Yeah. Excuse me, I heard you crinkling a package in the kitchen. Could you stop doing that? Yeah.
What is your life motto?
Well, there's that one I said before, which was, if I just keep going, success is inevitable.
Yeah.
And then can I say 2?
Yeah, of course.
The other one would be, I can't remember it. Damn it. It was going to be so good. I was just talking with my partner about this. It's something
it's like to be an author. It's there and then it's gone.
Seriously. Like, yeah, sorry, I've lost it. It was something like progress. Oh, I've got it.
Yep.
Becoming is better than being.
I love that.
Isn't that a good one?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because it's all about like, once you reach a goal, you're like, okay, what next? You know, but the actual, like, the best part is the journey.
Yeah, is the journey and the growth. Do you know what's also ironic? Again, I think we're like the same damn person, which is creeping me out a little bit. But your first one is one that I have told myself for so many years, because I'm like, just keep working hard. Something's going to happen. Like, there's no way you're working this hard and nothing is going to happen for you.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
like I was like,
yeah.
Did you steal mine or did I steal yours? Or are we in the same thought bubble?
Yeah, it helps a lot. Like, I remember the first couple years that I was writing, I told myself that like so many times, because you just constantly get beat down when your sales are at like $2.17 for the day, and you're like, well, great, I'm glad I quit my job. Like, that was a smart decision. So yeah, like those years, it was really like, I just had to just dig in and be like stubborn and be like, this is gonna work. Like, I'm gonna make this work. And it's true, because like, if you stop, then you automatically fail, right? I mean, you're allowed to change your mind and pursue other things. That's not what I mean, right? But like, the only way you're actually 100% sure that you're not gonna reach whatever goal is if you stop.
Exactly.
But you're allowed to change your goals. You can do whatever you want. This is my wisdom.
That was a wisdom, but that was your goal and you succeeded. What is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about?
I'm really good at spreadsheets.
Really?
Yeah, I'm really good at spreadsheets. And like Excel, I'm so good.
Do you do like a lot of them for your business and stuff like that?
Yeah, I've built this like really, really huge tracking spreadsheet with like, and I learned how to use Google Data Studio, so I have this whole back dashboard and stuff. But yeah, numbers are, I like numbers.
I have had so much fun with you on today. Let us know what's coming out and where do we follow you? Where do we connect? My
next release is Big Bossy Problem, and that'll be coming out in August. It is a boss employee, obviously, billionaire Accidental Baby book. And so that's in August. I can't remember the date. And you can follow me on Instagram, lilian.monroe. If you go to my website, lilianmonroe.com, you can join my mailing list. And that's probably the most reliable place to get me, because I don't really check my messages anywhere else very regularly. But yeah, or Facebook or TikTok. If you just search my name, it should come up.
I know that I'm following you everywhere at the moment, so definitely check them out. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. I've had an absolute blast.
Thanks for having me. So did I.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe next year we'll get you on again and see where you're up to.
Yeah, I'll have new goals.
Yes, I can't wait. Well, I'm going to love you and leave you, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye, guys.